Thank you so much for watching, listening, joining. Of course, I'd love for you to subscribe because we have amazing content on this channel. And hello. Really excited to start a new series related to Christmas, of course, because we're kind of right on the threshold and starting to jump into the thick of all of that. And I was thinking, praying about this time together, and I felt like Holy Spirit dropped an idea in my heart related to Christmas. You know, I've always had Jesus, right? Looking for Jesus, and in all of my series that I've done in recent years. However, Christmas series. And this year, of course, we will continue to have Jesus because he's kind of the central idea of Christmas. Hello. However, I was thinking this year, I wanted to look at the idea of Christmas in motion. And if your Christmas is anything like my Christmas, it's always a very busy season. It's always lots of motion, lots of running here, running there, doing this, doing that. And in the past, I used to procrastinate. And I'll never forget, sobbing on Christmas Eve. We opened presents Christmas Day, sobbing at 11:30 p.m. because I still had so much, because I had procrastinated. And I just had to, it's all kinds of activity, all kinds of frenzied coming and going and parties. And if you're an extrovert, it's fantastic. It fuels you, gives you lots of energy. If you're an introvert, you're like, I'm drowning. I get it. But I want to take us back for a moment and look in the era of Jesus when he was born, and consider that there was also motion around Christmas, around his arrival. And when you think about it, this first episode that we're going to do is Joseph and Mary. They were in motion. And granted, you're like, what do you mean by that? Well, there was a decree by Caesar Augustus that everyone had to return to their hometown to do a census. And so to take count of, how many people are in the empire at that point. And so Joseph, who was betrothed, engaged to Mary, went to Bethlehem, from Nazareth to Bethlehem. And so whether they walked or rode a donkey, they were in motion. And Mary's at the end of her pregnancy, so she's, 9 months into, and I think about this and I think, I don't know. I think it would be a little bit tricky to do that journey. It would take around 4 days to a week, plus or minus, because remember, there's no Ubers or anything like that. It was just walking by foot or on a donkey. And so she's at the end of her pregnancy walking, all day long for at least 4 days, if not a week, depending on how much they stopped or whatever, rested. And there was difficulty and struggle in that. There was motion, but it's interesting because the motion was in some respects required because of the prophecy in Micah 5 verse 2, which says that a ruler would come from Bethlehem. And so Joseph makes his way to Bethlehem, that's his hometown. Mary comes with him. They're in motion. And I think it's really important for us to remember that, and I have this in my heart. God says a lot of times, I hear this in the back of my mind, Sarah, I can't steer a parked car. And when I think about that, I think I like that because it helps me appreciate at least a little bit of motion can be directed. But the less you move, the less you're able to be directed. And I understand that Christmas can have too much motion, but I think there's an important balance in that. And I'll never forget with snowboarding. I learned early on that, the slower you go, the harder you have to work. But the faster you go, within reason, the less you have to work. You can make minor adjustments, and it's the same way when you drive your car. When you are turning the corner and pre-power steering, you used to have to really crank it because it was slow. But the quicker you're going, the less you have to work at steering, at moving. And I just think that's important for us to think about when we ask God to direct our paths, to guide our decisions. And I think sometimes we have the idea that we're waiting for God to give us an answer, to give us direction. And it's possible that God is waiting for us to get moving so God can steer us. And I recognize that Mary and Joseph, they were in motion. They were making their way to Bethlehem. And there was difficulty, hardship, and struggle in that motion. It wasn't an easy process. It wasn't an easy journey, in particular for Mary. I mean, she is 9 months pregnant and she's walking, and that might have hastened the delivery. I don't know. We don't know. The Bible doesn't say. But there's some struggle and some opposition. And I think it's important for us to recognize that when we are in motion, it doesn't always mean things are easy and smooth and just going to be no clouds and thornless roses. There can be hardship and things to overcome, some difficulties and some struggles. And it's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing, because when we're in motion, God can steer us, can direct us, guide us. We go through some struggles and some peaks and valleys and some unexpected, turns in the road. Might have a hairpin curve, which is a little tricky to navigate. But also appreciate that as we're in motion and we have these hardships and struggles, difficulties, those help and they shape us and they form us. They can be negative or positive depending on kind of our orientation or who we keep our eyes on, God, hopefully. But I also want you to be encouraged with this. The end of the motion, and the beginning of the motion, the whole thing, for Joseph and Mary was filled with miracles. So Mary was pregnant. That was a miraculous pregnancy. Looking after her pregnancy was a very, very miraculous time. She went and hung out with her cousin Elizabeth, who was also miraculously pregnant. And then Joseph, who was like, he should put her away quietly because she's pregnant out of wedlock. And he has a dream where the angel says, don't be afraid. That which is conceived in her is supernatural. So Joseph continues to stay engaged with Mary and protects her and is her covering. And, they land in Bethlehem, and that's miraculous. And the birth, I think, is miraculous. So I think when we're in motion, it's important for us to not only see and recognize there can and will be hardships and struggles, but let's also keep our eyes open and remember that there's miracles. That miracles when we're in motion, and there's also some struggles when we're in motion. But that's part of what I think it means in some respects to follow Jesus and to let Jesus come into our lives and be born in our lives in a fresh and a new way. So that's my prayer for you this season, that Jesus would be born in your life in fresh and new, vibrant ways, and that we follow, stay in motion, and stay in love with Jesus. So as you think about this, thank you so much for subscribing. Love to have you share this with a friend. Hit the notification bell right there. It'll keep you posted when we put up new content. And here's a question for you to think about. What is your favorite thing about Christmas? What do you like the most? If you had to stack rank everything and put it at the very top, you're like, I don't know, I have 2 or 3. Well, give us your top 2 or 3. Just put that in the comments. And hello, we have these fantastic jokes at the end. Kind of fantastic, depending on how you look at it. So, which is faster, hot or cold? Hot is faster because you can catch a cold. I know, next week will be a lot better. Thanks.